Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, it was our fault. We made a mistake. The spotter said it was clear. It wasn't clear, and, I didn't want to tear my car up, tear his car up either. I respect everybody, and I demand respect. And, I apologized to the guy when he came over the car, explained to him what happened, and then he took it to another level when he started calling me an idiot and whatever else. And I don't appreciate that. I'm not going to take it. I told him how I felt. I called him out. He didn't show. And so, I'm good with it if he's good with it, but I'm not going to be disrespected by no means.
Yeah, I guess I had a dinner date at Applebee's last night that I didn't find out about until it was too late. It's a shame. Love their riblets and boneless wings, but...
All right, folks, welcome back to Meet Me at Applebee's, your number one unrefined motorsports podcast. And we got a full booth this week. It's not just myself, Rob, and Ashley. We've also got our good friend, Jay Pennell from Racing America here once again. Folks, how we doing this week?
Good, yeah. Jay just happened to be at this Applebee's. He was, he was actually working a shift at the hostess stand, and he was getting off work, so we had him come sit down with us. Is that right, Jay?
Yeah, that's pretty true. I am looking for work, so if anybody out there knows anything, just let me know. But just hey.
Did I fuck up again? You're not.
No. I'm just hey, how are your appetizers? Everything good over here?
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure you're good. Yeah.
Your service has been
racing.
Your service has been excellent tonight. How you doing, True?
Thank you.
I'm great. I'm here.
You got your tongue.
Yes. I got my tongue, so
that's important.
This show's a day late, and Jay's here because I thought I was going to need a replacement, possibly, because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to talk for a couple weeks, but the doctor cleared me. They didn't have
I
to
thought you
cut my
meant a
tongue
replacement
out,
tongue.
That's what I thought.
That would have been part of
the Gene Simmons.
Her tongue cancer miraculously went away in a couple days. So
It's all that irradiated Dawsonville water down there that took right care of that shit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're okay, True Love. But
Yes.
I'm also
Me
glad
too.
that that worked out, so we could have Jay on here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks,
It's always
Jay.
fun to be on here.
Well, Nashville is come and gone. The big weekend, the triple header, that happened. Along with some other stuff. So, where do we begin, folks?
Well, I didn't watch the truck race at all, so I don't know what happened there. I know that Todd Bodine tweeted out that he thinks that these younger drivers need to put some meat on their bones and get fatter, which I agree with. I'd like to see that.
These kids are like sitting in saunas and working out like 3 or 4 times a day, or 3 or 4 times a week. It's like
the Jimmy Spencer days are gone. That's for sure.
Well,
Yeah, they're
listen,
definitely gone.
if you want drivers with meat on your bones, Sheldon Creed's right there. So
right.
get on the train with me, bud.
Yeah. Doesn't Mike Harmon get in the car every once in a while? So
It's also true.
Yeah.
Right. I think he's got enough meat for everybody in the truck series.
From what I remember of the truck race, it was a good time. Nothing stands out to me as crazy that happened, but it was entertaining enough. Definitely more entertaining, I thought, than the Xfinity race. But Christian Eckes won. I think he led every lap, but which makes it sound boring, but it was a good race other than him leading every lap. So I don't know. That's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Yeah,
It was fine. It was on FS2, so I'm sure not many people watched it.
Yeah.
Boyer was in it. He got caught up in some shit.
Oh,
he didn't have a good time.
Listening to Boyer was the best part because, once he got in that first incident, he was just pissed the fuck off, yelling the whole fucking time, swearing the whole time, and I predicted that he was going to get shithoused as soon as he got out of that car. And the first thing he did in his post-race interview was talk about how many beers he was going to have. So I predicted correctly.
Yeah, I guess he hasn't watched a truck race in the past 5 years because that was pretty par for the course from what I hear. Again, I didn't watch it.
The quote was, "Did any of these motherfuckers have spotters?" That was his direct words. So.
He also kind of quietly called out Brett Griffin a little bit. He's like, "This is the first time I've ever had SMT data fed to me when I'm down here," and that's been a big part of NASCAR for 10 years at least. So.
Has it?
I think so, right?
Yeah.
It's been a part of NASCAR since before Boyer retired.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I don't think it was as big and as prevalent, but I don't think you could see everybody's things, but you could definitely see your own, right?
Yeah.
It definitely seems like only the last 2, 3, maybe 4 years that.
Yeah, definitely with this new car, it's taken on a whole new
Yeah.
new importance. But yeah, I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
I did not watch any of the truck race or the Xfinity race. I was out in the middle of the woods with absolutely no service for like 3 days, and I got back right as the national anthem started for the Cup race. It worked out perfect. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, the only thing that happened in the truck race was Lane Riggs wrecked Stephen Parsons on purpose.
That's
That
right.
too,
Yeah.
NASCAR parked him for 2 laps, so
Nice.
Man, I thought that was. I don't know, man. Like, I know they had to do something about that. You can't just fucking hook people. You know, you can't just wreck people. But those guys were like Jimmy jacking each other for like 5 laps, from what I could tell anyway. You know, I get
How weird must have Phil felt watching that?
Yeah. Probably similar to what Jeff Burton feels when his son wrecks. So.
Right, I think that's how Phil feels all the time watching that, you know, like watching.
Well, I mean, I guess there's a direct comparison because Jeff Burton got to watch his kid get wrecked in the same fashion in the
Right,
Cup race.
yeah.
But I guess we'll get to that in a moment here.
Saturday. So I'm trying to think. I don't know if I watched. No, I watched some of the Xfinity race, but I don't remember much about it. I mean, John Hunter Nemechek won. Fucking great.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, really proving
Yeah,
he
there
belongs
was
in that
really-
series.
nothing that happened in that race. There was a bunch of Cup drivers in there, but it was a pretty uneventful race.
It looked hot.
Yeah. Which it's so speaking of hot, so we'll talk about this real quick. So I was listening to Junior's podcast today, and he was talking about how maybe NASCAR should think about certain provisions or changes that could possibly be made when it's super hot, like it was this weekend in Nashville. How about you allow people to bring their own fucking drinks into the track? Like,
Yeah.
this is still a thing at that track, which is why I will never ever go there. Like,
Yeah,
as
same.
long as that's a thing.
100%.
I'll never go back there.
What are you allowed to bring in? What is it, like 2 bottles of water that are sealed or something?
Empty bottles, I think.
They're empty.
I
I
think
think you have to have empty bottles of water.
Holy shit.
Yeah, when I went,
And-
you could bring water, but it had to be in a clear plastic bag, and you couldn't bring in loose ice. So,
Hell yeah.
and then
I also think you
all
can't bring your
the-
own food.
Really?
no, not to that track. And all the water fountains were shut off because it was like 2021, so they were like, no, COVID, so you couldn't refill the water. And then they ran out of water at all the vendors, so
So I forget, is Nashville an SMI track or is somebody else on that?
it is.
Yes, that's an SMI track.
They at least
So why
lease
is
it
that
and
the-
run the show, yeah.
Why is that the only one that they do that at? Because the other tracks you can bring stuff in.
I honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, that was actually a question I was going to ask you, Jay, but if you don't know, then yeah, I would assume it has something to do with local laws.
I guess, yeah.
But you
I know
know,
the
it's
alcohol
literally in the
part
middle
does.
of nowhere. Like, it is in the middle of a bunch of fields. It is, like, probably, I mean, what is it, True Love? Like, 40 minutes from downtown Nashville? Like, it is
Yeah,
not
at
easy to get
least,
to. Like, the traffic is always jacked up getting out there.
It is
I
not
wasn't there this
Nashville,
weekend.
that's for sure.
Like, it is not Nashville at all.
Yeah.
I was never like on the fan side of it when I went there, so I can't really speak to that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that one is so different from every place else, because I know when like COVID got finished, Charlotte Motor Speedway and SMI had different rules than what ISC had. You know, I had no issues bringing a cooler into ISC tracks. I think that was in 2021. But then when I went to Charlotte Motor Speedway, I had an issue bringing in my cooler, and they had to be clear or something like that.
Yeah,
so.
that's how it was at Loudon right after the pandemic too. But again, there were still no restrictions on what you could bring in.
Yeah,
No,
Darlington
exactly.
was the same way, and now people don't even barely even look. As long as you're not bringing in glass, nobody gives a
Yeah,
shit.
they don't give
so.
a fuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even then. Yeah, at Loudon they didn't even have you open your bag anymore. They
Nice.
just send you right to the metal detectors, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
So I guess nobody cares about the Xfinity race, so I guess we can move on to Sunday.
Great racing podcast we got going. A NASCAR focused racing podcast.
Well, it was a really uneventful race.
Yeah, it was a boring race. Like,
I mean,
hate
I
it.
think the
It
only
was
thing that
really
really
hot.
happened was, Riley Herbst's cool suit broke, and he pitted while pit road was closed because he just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
So he went down there so they could dump out.
They
the
wouldn't.
water or
They wouldn't let
something.
him bring a water bottle in with him. So. Yeah, let's just get this cup race discussion over with. We were a little bit of a house divided this weekend.
A little bit. So Sunday was the.
I got a little drunk and dismissive, so my apologies.
It's fine. I could tell. We'll get into it in a second. But yeah, Sunday was the cup race, and it was a race that was kind of a slow build until the very end when it turned into a complete shit show.
Yeah.
Which I don't think any of us were necessarily expecting. I mean, Nashville, the races last few years have been pretty good. And a lot of the players that have been up front the last few years, as the race played out naturally, were up there.
Yeah.
You had Ross, you had Denny, you had Larson up there all fighting for the win towards the end. Overall, I think it was a good race. I don't think anybody could complain. I mean, they had a very short, comparatively, pretty short rain delay.
It's like 90 minutes?
Yeah, it was only a little over an hour. It wasn't really bad at all. I mean, they saw it was going to be a short shower. There was a little bit of lightning in the area, but they were able to get the track dried up pretty quickly and cars back out there. So,
And a great finish that was shaping up there, too, between Denny and Ross. That battle was excellent.
Yeah.
Yes, it was good. It was going to be a very good race. And then with 2 or 3 to go, Cindric spins and brings out the caution. It was a weird spin, too, like just a strange way to spin. Not saying it was on purpose, but it was just weird. And then from there, again, total fucking chaos.
Yeah. It was like a plate race.
Circus started. The clowns came out to do their act.
So now here's where Rob and I had our issue. So which restart was it? Was it the first or the second one?
No, it was the second one because there was the big wreck with Gregson, everybody towards the back, and then they lined him up. And
yes.
Then Larson tried to bump Denny up the track. And,
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. You're admitting what happened. Okay, because folks, let me tell you what happened.
Well, Larson admitted that. He said, I was trying to move Denny up the hill so I could get underneath him, but then he hit the apron.
But
so.
You certainly didn't think that when I called it out on Sunday, did you?
No, I just sent the shrugging arms emoji, and that was all.
Come on, motherfucker.
And then I said, who cares?
You cannot deny that. You cannot. You were getting pissy, and come on,
I was
stop it.
Sitting back and loving it.
Yes, yeah. I knew Ashley was loving it because, obviously, we've got Rob's the Larson fan. Yeah. I'm the Chastain fan. I think we're all indifferent on some level to Denny. I respect the hell out of Larson, and it was very clearly what happened was, Larson was, like Rob just said, going for Denny, hit the apron, got totally loose, took out Ross, which, that obviously sucks. And then we got to start the whole conversation about the Kyle Busch thing, which personally I couldn't give 2 shits about.
No, I don't either. Yeah,
the fact that was
I
such
think they just have to be consistent, right? Like,
Yeah.
the car literally stopped and was on the DVP. Like, if you're gonna list a car on the official
the restart,
list and have him on the DVP, then he should not be keeping his position. That should just be cut and dry.
Yeah, I don't understand how they made that decision either.
Yeah,
they've explained it, but it was like, he was on the DVP, but he wasn't in the wreck. And it's like, how the fuck is that possible?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
You don't get on the DVP unless you're in a wreck.
He was in the wreck, obviously.
He hit the wall.
Literally.
He also didn't cause it, and he was just kind of collected, which I guess is why, in my head, that's why I thought they gave him spots back, because he didn't cause the actual wreck. Like, he didn't spin. He obviously got some collateral damage. But
I don't think that has ever been a point in the history of NASCAR where they've given somebody a spot back just because they happen to be around a wreck. If you lose the positions,
I think NASCAR was like, look at this clown show. We have enough going on right now.
And also,
Kyle, do whatever you want.
Yeah, Kyle's been having a bad year. Let's try to let them have this moment.
You're going to wreck out before it ends anyway. So.
Maybe they were scared that Kyle had his gun on him or something,
Right.
That's bad television right there.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know. That was a weird situation to me because I feel like ultimately that's a failure of race control, right? Because there's a car that to me the car is in the wreck. Like, he slowed, he got passed by a bunch of people below him, that clearly passed him, avoiding the wreck.
Yep.
He hit the outside wall before the wreck was done, and yes, he had to come to nearly a complete stop to avoid the other car in front of him, and nobody else hit him, but still he was involved in the wreck. So to give him his positions back like that, especially in a situation where it's a green-white checkered, and he's so close to the playoff cut line.
Yep.
That just seems extremely strange to me.
It's very
and
short-sighted.
Ultimately, a failure of like the officiating right there. So.
And kudos to NBC for calling that out as well.
Yeah, I do like that.
Jeff
I will say, I
Burton was
feel like
very
Jeff
upset.
Burton does a good job. Both him and Letarte. Letarte gives a good crew chief perspective. From somebody who was wrenched on these. I feel like he does talk about Spire a whole lot, right?
Oh yeah.
But I feel like Jeff Burton does a good job of calling it like it is, which is nice, and it's good to see.
It's certainly a breath of fresh air. Yeah.
Real quick
100%.
aside, I've got Port Royal on TV right now as we're recording this, and there is somebody driving an old Milwaukee 410 that looks like it was from 1987, and it's amazing. So I needed to call that out real quick.
Yeah, PA Speedwicks, they do a lot of the throwback stuff. They'll bring vintage cars out and let them rip laps in between heats and features and shit. They were doing it at
Well, this is the 410B feature, so it's
it's actually a paint scheme.
Yeah, I can't see what driver it is. Sisney?
We're watching Flo. Fuck it, let's go.
Yeah. Anyways, so
Didn't watch the truck race. We're gonna watch some sprint cars right now live for you.
So back to the actual race itself.
Yeah. God definitely sorted out the Kyle Busch situation on the next restart.
Oh, absolutely.
Though. Yeah.
He probably would have been better off at the end of that race if he hadn't been put back in fourth.
Yeah.
Right.
He would have got caught up in
100%.
that other wreck. So.
Yeah.
And everybody was running out of gas and running into each other, and it was a real embarrassing shit show. But at the same time, people were like, should we limit green white checkers? No, because this never happens. This is the first time we've ever had that many, and it rarely ever gets more than 2, maybe 3. So
I mean, that sort of thing happens at plate tracks a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
But so it's not totally foreign territory.
but not up to 5 though. That's the thing.
Get pretty close. I mean, especially
they try their
sometimes you
best.
sit there and watching some of those Xfinity races at Daytona, or the truck race. I feel like sometimes they can get pretty close, and it gets pretty Mickey Mousey, and Sunday was a bit much. And Kyle Busch taking a bow on the front stretch. That's
I loved that very much.
Yeah. Yep. That about sums it up right there, right?
Yep.
Corey LaJoie was actually running somewhat up front for a good portion of the race, but at the very end, his teammate Zane Smith got his first top 10 of the season, actually top 5 because he finished second.
The highest finish of a Spire car in the history of the organization, apparently.
There you go. Somebody won, I don't know, I think it was $3,000. I'm betting on him on a top 5 with $6.
That's a balls in a wheelbarrow bet right there.
That's right.
Good for that guy. And Corey, not only has Corey not had a top 5 on a non-plate track, he's not had a top 10. He's had nothing. So, for all the talk of Harrison Burton getting out of the Cup Series, I think it's time to get Corey out of there too. But
I love that we have a segment unofficially, just LaJoie watch. And he's earned it. So
How terrible Corey did this week.
I don't even think he ran out of gas. He just kind of fucked the restart up and just sunk back to 58th place, and that was that. So.
Yeah,
let Zane have one for once in a while.
There's a lot of drivers looking for rides, and that's a seat that could be filled, and I don't know anything about anything, but you look at the performance of that car, especially when you have 2 rookies as your teammates, and they're outperforming you almost every weekend.
Yeah. Well, not Zane until this weekend.
One is, obviously, but
this is the first time Zane has seen clean air this season. So.
Right, but I mean, I feel like Corey hasn't been doing very much better, a whole lot better. He might run towards the front here and there, but
he has his moments where he's running in a good position, but then he always fucks it up. Always fucks
serial
it up.
choker. Yeah.
It doesn't count if you run well. Ultimately, you need to finish these races, and you need to finish them. A car like that should be finishing the top 15, fighting for the top 10, but it's not. Yeah.
Fuck them. Whatever. I'm definitely never getting back in the LaJoie seating tent ever again. But speaking of Spire Motorsports, Carson Hocevar let the little devil on his shoulder, speaking to his ear during that race. And I don't know if you guys have seen the entire video leading into when he hooked Harrison Burton into the fence under caution.
Todd Gilliland had a good in-car.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I saw that one.
But
Yeah.
man, that is some classic Carson Hocevar. And you know, I was honestly like, I'd forgotten, not completely, but like I forgotten just like the body of work that Carson put together in the truck series.
Right.
Of just, you know, PS2 moves, you know, spinning to bring out yellows and just wrecking people for fucking seemingly no reason. You know, somebody put together a great compilation video that didn't even include, as I described to you guys, the 9/11 of Carson Hocevar terrorist moments. It was when he hooked somebody, right hooked, who was it? Brett Holmes into the fence at IRP.
Oh yeah.
I think so.
Just right hooked him straight
yeah.
into the fence under green, which is, if you've never watched racing before, that's a no-no.
Yeah,
That's the one way you don't do it. That'll get you a suspension. But yeah, just
I
Little
thought he
relapse.
had been like a changed man. I thought he'd been, you know,
He had been on his best behavior.
it had been so long since he did
yeah.
some tomfoolery.
Yeah, it was definitely a grandpa, you know, starting drinking again on Christmas moment. That's for sure. In front of the whole family.
Right. He was also making ground in the rookie points too. You know, that was a pretty tight battle. So I'm sure. I don't know how it all works out. I think it's a different point system, but I'm sure, you know, like that's going to impact him in that battle as well.
Oh, for sure. What was it? 25 points and $50,000. Was that the
Yes,
penalty?
yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's a pretty clear message.
I would say so. Yeah, I got no problem with him getting penalized.
No, you know, and like, you know, like we said, I feel like he was doing a good job of being mature, you know, because he has done these things. He did have a reputation. People have called him out, you know, in very public ways, and I feel like he had done a lot to make up for that, and
Absolutely.
now he's got to do all that work again. And so that's on him. You know, I know you get hot under the helmet,
Yeah.
but you can't be doing that.
Harrison Burton's quote on the radio was fucking hilarious, though. Well, what did he say? Like, I fucking hate that kid. Fucking hate him.
I think Gillian
Seriously.
said that.
Oh,
Yeah, I think that was
Or
Gilliland.
maybe they both
Yeah.
said it.
I'm sure they both said something similar to that, but yeah.
Give it enough time, like Harrison's gonna spin himself out. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
yeah.
So he should be sending an edible arrangement to Carson.
Right.
Take the
So-
heat off himself.
I guess the last question is, was that actually a good race? I mean, I thought it was decent. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the end was chaos and unnecessary,
Yeah.
but other than that, it was fine.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Again, like I thought the first 2/3, people were saying it was kind of boring. Again, I'm just kind of used to races playing out that way. Again, the finish was going to be excellent leading into
Yeah.
that. That battle between Denny and Ross was awesome, and it's a shame we got robbed of it. But, you know, just the way these guys race in these green-white checker situations, you know, again, they're never going away, so this is just the way it is now. But definitely, like, having a playoff system and a championship system the way that NASCAR does now, like, you know, it just causes, you know, guys like Kyle Larson or whoever the fuck, you know, in any given moment, Ross Chastain, Denny, they've all done it, to make some ridiculous moves like that to get the win. And now, would it be any different if it was a regular points system? I don't know. You know, maybe it wouldn't be, but just the fact that you put so much pressure on these guys in those moments to deliver, I feel like that kind of can push the pressure in the wrong direction once in a while. So I don't know, like everyone, like, but again, Jeff Gluck's polls are always, you know, it's very much a straw poll kind of, you know, doesn't mean much of anything. It's entertainment value purely, but you know, you got like what 75% of people saying that was a good race, and I just can't agree when we're finishing up like that. It's embarrassing. It looks ridiculous. It's fun, you know, but
Well, it's almost what you're doing is treating like the exact opposite of something like not Atlanta. Well, I guess Atlanta. I don't know, like where it's a boring race until the very end. Like it was a decent race until the very end,
Yeah.
and we got robbed.
yeah,
So
that's what soured it for me.
I also feel like it was. I thought it was a good race for the majority of the race, right? Because I feel like, you know, they started out. You know, Nashville's a tough track. It's really hard on brakes. Like you've really got to drive that car and slow it down, and drive it hard into the corner, get it turned, and you know. So I feel like handling is really key there. But then all of a sudden, this weather was approaching, right? So that changed the dynamic of the race. You know, are you going to get to halfway before the rain hits or the lightning hits? So I feel like that upped the intensity. You know,
absolutely.
thankfully, which was entertaining to watch, you know, and ultimately we didn't get to halfway before all that hit. You know, thankfully, I think because it was such a short red flag period, you know, that intensity still kind of lingered and didn't, you know, go away. So I feel like, you know, to me, yeah, was it like kind of a Mickey Mouse show at the end? Yeah, but I think a lot of times when we look at was it a good race or not, we also get caught up in was it a good finish or not, right?
Right.
You know, we've talked about this whole race for a long time. We haven't even talked about Joey Logano, right? Like we haven't talked about the fact that he, you know, like him and Paul Wolf stretched his fuel, you know, as long as they did, which, you know, him probably running in the back of the pack probably helped. You know, him running mid-pack probably helped.
Well, they also ran a set of left side tires for what, like 130 laps or something like that?
Right.
Which is crazy.
Like, which goes to show, like, you know, love him or hate him, like Joey Logano is an excellent driver, right? For him to be able to kind of manage those things and to capitalize in a position like that where, you know, the point situation was looking like it was, and now all of a sudden he's in the playoffs. So, you know, that definitely changes things. So I ultimately thought it was a good race. You know, yeah, you have these stupid moments throughout where guys can't keep their cars under them or, you know, lose their heads for a little bit. But ultimately, I thought it was entertaining and, well, yeah, I thought it was a good one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I guess moving on to that, might as well.
Hey, Joey Logano won. Did we say that? Yeah, we did.
Yes, we did. Yeah. Well, might as well start off. I mean, there's a bunch of different news this week. Going off the Joey Logano win, Joey is going to be getting into an Xfinity car this week, taking the place of Hailie Deegan.
Basement dwellers nationwide are losing their shit over this.
So many guys are pissed off about this. I don't know if I sent it to you guys, but there's definitely a screenshot where somebody in one of the groups was like, she's not going to fuck you, man. Like, I'm married. I wouldn't even want to do that. Like, I just think Joey Logano's a chump. And it's like, he's a 2-time Cup champ who's won how many fucking races? Like, he's going to be able to at least give
including the
them...
previous one.
Yeah.
Right.
Hailie Deegan's not a chump? What?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is not something that is uncommon, like for you know, a guy with like the level of Logano's experience getting in a underfunded or a poor performing team and giving us some feedback. It doesn't necessarily always happen in a race like this, replacing your full-time driver.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Deegan experiment is just about on its last legs, I feel like. You know, she had some moments in ARCA, but I don't think she's really proven anything. And, you know, you can say, she should have stayed in trucks longer, or this, that, and the other thing. But
Well, that didn't go so well either, so.
She didn't really do much there either.
You can only blame your surroundings so much, you know, that being the squirrels around you for ruining your races, which, to be fair, there was a good amount of them. But, you know.
And it's also not like she's, what's her face? Who's the other Instagram influencer who's
Tony?
Also not Tony, the other one.
Natalie?
The blonde, Natalie. She's not Natalie Decker, you know. Natalie. And Tony's actually not that bad of a driver either, but you know, Natalie's god awful. You know, Hailie Deegan is at least better than that, but that's not saying much.
Well, maybe Hailie could still like become a Monster Energy girl or something. Still at the track.
Well, I can see her
Only
driving.
true love can say that without.
I can see her. So, as someone who, you know, we're talking about monster trucks later. I could see her maybe getting in the Monster Energy monster truck at some point. That's still involved in motorsports. It's off road. She'll make a lot of money doing that, and who knows? I mean, but there's that I could see a path for her. Or off-road trucks or something. Maybe
I don't think Hailie's going away anytime soon. I think this is just if this was any other track, I don't know that this, you know, Hailie be getting out of the car for Joey Logano, but I feel like this is a situation where Joey wanted to get more lap time or, you know, track time, regardless of whether the car's different or, you know, related or not. You know, any time around that track is crucial. So I feel like this is a situation where Joey probably went, you know, with maybe a little bit of money and said, hey, let me help you get your program better. And they were able to figure something out, and, you know, he's going to be able to run a whole bunch of practice laps,
Yep.
a whole bunch of qualifying laps, and a whole bunch of race laps before racing on Sunday. So I know other guys are going to do that, but I think this is I think there's not a whole lot to read into this, but obviously Haley's not performed in this car, right? She hasn't really performed in the truck series like you guys are saying, but
yeah, I guess I agree with you.
This is like the end of Haley Deegan's time in that car.
No, I don't think this is the final nail or anything like that, but it's more the body of work. I guess that's worth discussion. But like you said, if you have the opportunity to put Joey Logano in your car, you're probably going to take it if you're trying to find speed. So,
Yep.
While we're still in the silly season talks, somebody just posted in group chat, Sam Mayer is in negotiations with Front Row Motorsports regarding a cup ride in 2025. Now, granted, this tweet is from some account called NASCAR Leak, so I don't know if there's too much truth to this.
I got one of those,
Moving on to other NASCAR silly season news. Josh Berry got announced for the 21 car today, which is good. I mean, Josh, I think like a lot of us, he belongs in the Cup Series. I think, he had a slow start, but every Ford has had a slow start in the last few weeks. All the Ford teams, including him, have really picked things up. He did a really good job last year in every replacement ride he was in, and I hope this is good. I mean, the 21 car has not had a truly good driver in it since Brian Blaney. No apologies to Matty D, who got got some shade thrown in him by Denny this week on Denny's podcast, which I loved. So Jared, his co-host, I don't know if Matty said something about Denny or something. Matty made some comment on Twitter, and Denny was just like, Matty, who's that? Like just pretending like he didn't know who he was, and then brought up how he bought him a set of tires once because he was bitching on Twitter about not having any money, and then Jared brought up how if Denny let him win, maybe his career wouldn't be over, and that was the end of that. So
we should thank Hamlin for winning that Bristol race.
Seriously,
I mean, hey, I respect
was there for that.
Denny.
Yeah, I remember that.
But
the great what if.
Yeah. But yeah, Josh Berry, I mean, I think the only bummer part of this, I mean, people want to say what they, people are, a 21 car is not that great, but it's also a Penske team, more or less. Yeah. Let's call it what it is.
It's all built right in the same shop.
And John Wood is taking the team over as well, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
so there's definitely some organizational changes happening there.
I mean, the only bummer is, I guess, and who knows, maybe it could change, but it doesn't seem like Rodney Childers is joining him over there. But
well, if you're Haas, would you let go of that guy?
I guess that's fair. It sounds more like, but it sounds more like Penske wants one of their people to do it as opposed to hiring Rodney.
Yeah.
So
I think it's going to be a good fit. I think obviously Josh brings that short track racer mentality. I think he's kind of that blue collar short track roots kind of guy, which fits very well with Wood Brothers. Like you said, I feel like with John and his sister getting a lot more involved in the day to day of the team, it's hopefully this leads to an improved Wood Brothers, and they can score that 100th victory. And I think this will be. It might take a little bit for them to get their feet under them, but I think this is a good move, and it's good for Ford to keep him in the fold.
It's about time they didn't let go of somebody. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And what a cool fucking story Josh has, going from sim racing with Dale Jr. online to now driving the 21 for the Wood Brothers. That's about as cool as it gets.
Yep.
Yeah. Josh is I've been a big fan of him since he really came into NASCAR, and I want to see him do good things, so hopefully this is good. I mean, what were his options, though, really? I mean, I guess front row would have been on the table.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that would have been a better choice. I still think with Penske being part of Wood Brothers, that's, for as good as front row has been the last year, I think it's still a safer bet, but, where else is he going to go? Yeah. And who knows where else Preece and Noah go, if anywhere. I mean,
well, it sounds like Preece is going to get an Xfinity ride. I would imagine maybe it's Stuart Haas.
Yeah, that would be fine, I guess.
Yeah. How do you feel about it, True Love? I don't know if you've chimed in about Josh Berry yet, have you?
Yeah.
I mean, woohoo!
Better than Harrison.
y'all covered it. I mean, I'm excited for him. I love the Wood brothers. I'm very partial to Leonard because he's a precious old man.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm excited. I think he'll get him that 100th win at some point.
Yeah, and Josh Berry doesn't bring in a lot of money either, so it's nice to see somebody without a shit ton of funding behind him get a shot in such a legendary
I can finally
ride.
buy some more Wood Brothers merch.
Yes.
Which
finally.
Interestingly enough, speaking of sponsorship, let's talk about this real quick because I know I caught this yesterday or today. So apparently, one of the reasons that Chase Briscoe went with Joe Gibbs, I mean, again, I don't know why you would go with anybody else when Joe Gibbs is calling you, was Joe, I guess, was the only team that didn't ask him about what sort of sponsorship he could bring to the table. Which I don't know if Barry brings any. I think there's that one like outdoors store that he brought with him from Xfinity to Cup. I forget the name of the store, but they sponsor the 4-car once in a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I don't. I guess if anything, that
primarily Bass Pro, right? Like on that 19 car. So I feel like that's probably why. You know, it's not like when Kyle was there and they had to fit in. Mars was leaving, right? You know, so I feel like that car with Johnny, I feel like almost funds itself most of the time, right?
Well, that was the other thing I was going to mention was the fact that sponsorship was such a big part of why Kyle Busch is no longer in that car, and then all of a sudden the conversation with Chase is we don't care about the sponsor part, we only care about you being in the car. I mean, obviously, I guess the big factor there is Kyle's paycheck. Like, he said he was willing to take a pay cut, but how big of a pay cut? I mean, Chase obviously is not going to get anywhere near the money that Kyle does, and
Josh makes like $7.25 an hour driving in NASCAR. So,
well, I think it's almost. I think it's a little bit of a different conversation because in Kyle's situation, you had a driver that wanted to stay, but the sponsor left, which is huge, right? Here you have a sponsor that's staying and the driver is leaving, so I think it's a little bit. I feel like it's a little bit of a different situation than what Kyle faced, but
for sure.
It is interesting that they're just like, hey, fuck it, come on over.
Yeah. Chase is also a much more easygoing guy, so I imagine that we know of anyway.
Well, compared to Kyle, not so much Josh. Josh seems easygoing too.
Yeah.
So. So going from hirings to firings.
Yeah, speaking of having no money.
First, we didn't talk about. Before we get to that, we got to talk about the Eric Almirola Bubba rumor. So
that's true. So the last time Jay was on this show, we actually discussed this because that was the first time that rumor popped up.
That's right.
We discussed it. You know, we kind of gave it the shoulder shrug. I don't know. Maybe we can see it happening, but you know, there's no way, right? Apparently, that's actually what happened.
Well, to find out.
The rumor made it seem like I think the rumor made it seem like Bubba was the one that started it, and it didn't make any sense. The first one that we heard, and then when the actual truth came out, it was Eric started the fight, and again. Jay, you've confirmed to us that Eric's kind of an asshole.
Yeah, and these guys have a history, right? Like,
yeah, they do.
I know there's been a video posted on social and everything, but like I think it was last year's Coca-Cola 600 during the rain delay.
Oh yeah.
Like they like nearly came to blows, you know, and you can see in that video like Bubba's talking shit, right? But he's walking away and trying to separate himself from the situation, and Eric just is keeping after it, right? Like. And you know, I mean, I think that speaks for itself. I'm sure what ultimately happened was, you know, this was a meeting between most of the Toyota drivers, and you know, Eric said something and offered his opinion. I don't know this for a fact, right? This is just my complete assumption of what happened.
Right.
Was he said something and offered his thoughts on it, and Bubba probably said something smart, right? And he didn't like that, so. That's kind of how I imagine that situation going down. All that's obviously pure speculation, but you know that I could see that happening.
Just guys diving over the table and the stack of Joe Gibbs books just flying everywhere. You know,
Joe Gibbs just praying in the corner.
I love this. This is so funny.
When they asked Bubba, he said that he couldn't comment to protect someone's good image.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because Eric's a good Christian boy. You know, that's who he is. He's the Christian family man.
Types who
of course.
make
well,
themselves...
you can look at America right now and how many good Christians are like gun-toting racists. You know, like this is how it is,
right?
I like to think that Ty Gibbs pulled a knife in the middle of all of it. That's what I'm gonna go with.
He was like that little thing next to Jabba the Hutt, like just like.
Yeah.
I didn't even say. There was a weird Ty Gibbs moment this week for me. They showed Ty Gibbs racing a BMX bike, which that made me feel certain type.
Oh,
So they did
that was down at Rock Hill. Yeah.
They did
That's
a little
cool
Olympic
spot.
BMX preview clip, and they showed Ty. I guess apparently Ty used to race BMX at some point, because I mean Sheldon Creed did, Jimmy Johnson, a bunch of different drivers have done that over the years, but Ty Gibbs also used to do it. So that made me feel.
There's a really big park, probably about like 20 minutes from Charlotte, just on the other side of South Carolina in Rock Hill, and they have what they showed in that clip where it's like a kind of course that you can go through, but they also have like a velodrome there where they do like high-speed races, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
Back to the firings, though.
Yeah, who else got fired this week?
Hooters got fired from NASCAR. So
I'm gonna take a hat off and
I'm
shed a tear.
Don't listen. Listen, motherfucker. I know you were a fan of the curse just as much as I was. So you should not celebrate this. Fuck Hooters. I am pissed off because I want to know when they stopped actually paying their bills, because if it was before the curse got broken, I might count it as not being broken.
Agreed.
Just as someone who still believes in the curse so much. Hooters stopped paying their bills. Hooters has started shutting down restaurants, and Hooters is no longer Chase Elliott's sponsor. And this was after breaking their 30-year curse of never winning. I don't know if it was all motorsports, but at the very least not NASCAR.
Were they still handing out the fried pickles anytime?
They were.
Yes.
Every time Chase gets a top 5, you get free fried pickles, and if he wins, you get. It's top 10. So they were handing out a lot of free pickles.
Yeah,
and
that's
if he
probably what
wins,
shut him down. Just like you closed Red Lobster down through
Right.
It's like
I
Red Lobster.
shut down Red Lobster with the shrimp intake.
Shrimp or fried pickles are not nearly as expensive as shrimp or wings, though. I mean, come on, let's talk
Chase
about
Elliott
profit
fans
margins.
show up in droves.
How many times has RJ been there?
The wings there have gone downhill like crazy. I went into the South Charlotte Hooters probably about a little less than a month ago just to have a beer, and I've been in lots of Hooters, and I can count probably on one hand how many times I've ordered a small beer, and I walked in there and I just felt bad, so I didn't walk out, and I just ordered a small beer and drank it as fast as I could and left. It was just grimy and depressing, right? But
Didn't the one in Mooresville close down?
yes, it did. So my guess is they're probably going to keep Concord open, Uptown open, and then Gastonia open, but that's probably it.
Damn. Again,
Yep.
breaking
R.I.P.
news. You heard it here
Hooters.
first, folks.
I was almost a manager down at Hooters. So my first real job in NASCAR, I worked for GMR Marketing, but at the same time, I'd applied at Hooters to be a general manager and was offered the job. And thankfully, the NASCAR thing came, because otherwise I'd
You'd be fired too.
You'd be fired too, probably. I don't think that would have worked out too well.
But somebody else got fired also.
That's such a funny way.
Danica Patrick got fired? What happened here? Because I didn't see this.
She was talking about lizard people on her podcast.
Well, that I saw. that I
I
very
didn't know
much
she got
saw.
fired over it, though.
Well, Sky Sports had enough of that. That doesn't fit in with what they want to have on their network. I'm sure Jensen Button is breathing a sigh of relief that he never has to talk to Danica again. But yeah, she got axed for literally talking about lizard people on a podcast. Which
Well, that's what happens when the lizard people run F1, right?
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
you want to go down that wormhole,
She's
brother?
on to
Let's.
me. Yeah, she's on to us. Let's get rid of her.
Somebody edited together a cut of the F1 intro with all the drivers having
Yeah.
lizard heads. That was amazing.
That was classic. That was good.
But yeah, she's gone. Not that I don't think any of us really watch an F1 anyway, so it's just kind of funny to mention. But yeah, she also got fired. But yeah, That's
Yeah,
that.
I'm sure the whole community that actually takes F1 serious is very relieved at that.
Yeah.
Oh yes, no. My one F1 friend, she hates Danica as much as all of us, and we just make fun of her every week. So, yeah.
Now Hooters is closed, so she can't even get a job.
Well, maybe she get a job as a Monster Energy girl.
There you go. Yeah, her and Haley.
Well, okay, so now my friend is saying that her firing is fake.
Really?
What? Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. That. Okay. She has to tell me what's. I'm very confused.
Late breaking news.
Now
folks.
we're
Late
spreading
breaking-
misinformation, and we're all gonna get
Alternative
fired.
news.
But she did talk about lizard people on her podcast at
She
length,
did.
and
In
it's
depth,
very
yeah.
very funny.
And then was she like conveniently not on the F1 broadcast, or was it? I don't know.
I didn't watch, so I'm not sure.
I'm googling this now. Oh yeah. However, these claims have been debunked, with Fastest Pit Stops tweet on X confirming that the story is entirely false, and Patrick is still associated with the Sky Sports F1 panel as presenter.
Well, sorry,
Damn.
Jensen Button.
Sorry, F1 fans.
If you want to come back over to NASCAR and race here and not have to talk, I'm sure there's a ride for you. So I'm a little surprised to see he wasn't in Chicago, or hasn't been
Yeah.
lined up for any more road course races this year that I'm aware of. Anyway, he's always done pretty well, especially in a Rick Ware car.
Yeah, he did pretty well last year. I was actually going back and looking at some of the videos because I was out in Chicago last year, and just what a cool event.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't, downpour like, a couple feet on them this weekend like it did last year.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
he was in one of the videos. We're not like driving down, part of it. So I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he was in that race. So I was surprised he's not in it.
40% chance of rain on Sunday right now, but that's it. So we'll see how that goes.
I was shocked. I've been watching NASCAR races all my life. I was 100% shocked that we raced that event last year.
Yeah, I didn't expect that either.
It was nuts.
Yeah.
It was absolutely nuts. And speaking of people who have jobs as long as they want them, John Force, we got an update on John and his condition. Apparently, his brain injury is pretty serious here. He was out for a few days. And again, like, this is just sort of the nature of, medical care in the 21st century.
Yeah.
I think you and I share the same opinion that it sounds like they put him into a medically induced coma or something.
Yes,
Neither of us are
Yeah, that's what it
doctors
sounds
here.
like.
I've been around enough like BMXers and stuff who have been put into medically induced comas that all the language they use to describe it, like life-threatening, was never part of it.
Yeah.
Which the handful of guys that I've known who've hit their head super hard and been put into comas, it wasn't because their injury was that bad. It was just to reduce swelling.
Exactly.
That's why you do that. So again, I still am shocked that it was a head injury that was John's major, issue, because like
not burns.
from all the reports that he was conscious, when they got him out of the car. To me, I figured it would have been a fire thing, like he was just burned really bad, But regardless, obviously, we all hope John gets better, and whether that means a return to the track or not, at this point, we just want to see him back and healthy. At
Exactly.
This point. But,
And Austin Prock is doing a fine job driving the car in his absence, so good for him. But yeah, apparently John, it took him a few days to sort of start communicating, which is, I think people were pretty upset about that. And then they asked him who he was, and then he said his name, and then he immediately pretty much started trying to rip himself out of the restraints he was in. So John's still in there, it sounds like.
Well, they strapped him down good, so it's not going anywhere.
But apparently, Shirley Muldowney thinks he should have been wearing a different helmet, because what
bought a
she
bell.
decided to do, amidst all this stuff that everybody was posting their well wishes to John, like the only thing you should do, she decided to go on Facebook and say, well, if he was wearing this other brand of helmet, which I've never even heard of the fucking brand of helmet she was talking about, he wouldn't have had a head injury, which is one of the worst things you can do in this type of situation. Like, you don't need to make someone, not just any driver, the greatest drag racer of all time, more or less. Let's just,
Certainly in
at
the
very least
conversation.
At the very least, the greatest funny car driver of all
Funny car
time, if not
driver,
the greatest
sure,
drag
yeah.
racer of
He's
all
on
time.
the Mount Rushmore if there was such a thing. There's
Yes.
no question
Yes.
about that.
This is not the time to make any sort of sponsor mention. Not at all. I mean, the guy was, they definitely were at the tracks at the same time. Like, Shirley was still running when John was starting out. So there's no fucking way you make this situation about a former colleague of yours about a sponsor. So that was very shameful. And I think she deleted that post after the fact. But
well, she had to get her fast as Xfinity 10G internet bonus check.
Either way, get well soon, John Force.
Yeah, for sure. I've been watching a bunch of old VHSs that I have. I mean, dating back to like 91, 92, and like they're primarily NASCAR, but there's always like highlights from NHRA and just crazy ass John Force, and it's cool to see him. Before all this happened, just being the same freaking dude he's been the entire, his entire life, and never slowing down. So,
regardless of what he's done on the track, he is not just the Mount Rushmore of drag racing, the Mount Rushmore of motorsports personalities.
Oh yeah,
like one of the biggest of all time, and I doubt there will ever be anybody as entertaining as he is in a race car.
He was a staple of my childhood. He's been the same the entire time, like you said, like just unwavering. Always a tough son of a bitch, and always just him. There's nobody like John Force. So
yep.
Really hoping his head injury doesn't affect that at all.
Yeah, that was our big fear, that he'd just come out normal.
Right.
Jonathan
Thinking he's
Force.
like a banker or something.
I'm feeling much better now.
Doing well. How are you?
Drag racing is scary.
I guess now that the new segment's just about over with, before we move on to the short track septic tank and video of the week, we've got a DARF of the week. But I want to talk about a DART of the week. That's a dumbass race team. Obviously, last week we talked about how JD Motorsports fired their social media guy, who was also their tire carrier. He was not fired in that position for using the Hawk Tui girl in a meme post about last week's race to Iowa.
They just took his phone away.
Yeah, they took his phone away. So they decided to double down on this stance, and the owner of the team got on Twitter and said that he's the father of a special needs child, and what if his special needs child saw that tweet and he would have to explain it? So that is one of the stupidest excuses you can make for this type of situation.
Imagine that conversation.
Your special needs child getting on Twitter.
I can't even imagine that conversation.
Well, son, that means,
Oh, it's so rough. So maybe I see his point.
Hopefully he's not a Shaq fan.
I can't even use a voice.
So regardless, fuck that guy and fuck that team. Also, Parker Kligerman actually used that meme, which only 3 days after the day it came out, meme's already done, like we're already over that. But he decided to actually use it with his sponsor, which his sponsor is an alcoholic lemonade. You probably don't want to use a meme where you spit out a fluid.
The fluid you're trying to sell.
Yeah. Trying to sell.
But at least he was allowed to do that. So good for you, I guess, Parker. Keep pushing Elon's fucking. He's a big Elon fan, which anybody who's a huge Elon Musk fan, I gotta look sideways at him. So even though I think he's a cool dude, regardless. But yeah, now we can go on to the DARF of the week, Rob.
So we already kind of covered it in the Haley Deegan segment. It was about basement dwellers and just people losing their minds on that. I actually feel like I have to issue an apology this week for last week's DARF of the week. Friend of the program, Kyle Armstrong, after listening to the show, he's for some reason also in the New Hampshire Motor Speedway camping group.
For the entertainment.
Yeah, for the entertainment, which, again, those Facebook groups are fucking hilarious, so it's definitely worth joining them. But he came across a photo of the guy I was talking shit about, standing behind his booze table, holding bottles up, and he says, "Just wanted to say thanks to everyone that stopped by. I look forward to every year to seeing all the familiar faces year after year and meeting new ones." And he looks just like the nicest fucking dude. So I feel like I may have issued my DARF of the week in haste. I was also in my cup at that point. So I'm going to walk that one back. Thanks for the drinks. I'll go see you next year. Sorry, bud.
Well, I still don't agree with his stance on being
it's
a
real dumb.
Sunday-only guy.
That's fucking stupid. And he still is a DARF of the week for that reason. But the first half of my
He definitely looks more
assessment,
jolly and into new metal than maybe I had him.
yeah, they were ripping the Theory of a Dead Man back there. So that was another thing that tainted it. But yeah, again, don't let me being an asshole get in the way of this guy having a good time. So a half retraction. How about that?
He looks so nice, Rob. He just looks like he's having such a good time.
So yeah, this week's Dark of the Week is me, I guess. For being a dick. The dick of the week. So.
So yeah, I guess now it's what's going on in the septic tank, because I did not pay much attention at all this week.
Climb on in and close the door, folks. Actually, leave it open before we close it here, because we got to start this off with an acknowledgement of something really terrible that happened to Jackson Speedway over the weekend. A track worker was killed when a 410 had a throttle hang, and it just shot into the infield and hit this guy. Had no chance. It was a complete freak accident. I don't want to say his name just because I'm not sure how to pronounce it, and I don't want to disrespect him, but I'm going to try here. Ralph Willhite was his name. And apologies if I mispronounced that. That's been released in the press, so it's okay for us to say. But just thinking about him and his family and the entire sprint car community and Jacksonville Speedway in particular, they're taking the summer off until August to sort of regroup and in remembrance of him. But again, racing's a dangerous sport, and not just for the drivers, the people who go out there, especially at some of these racetracks, out in the infield and in the pits and all that. Of course, Brent Marks, he had a crew member break a leg when the car rolled over his foot or over his leg a few nights before that. So it's dangerous for everyone who's involved. And this is something that unfortunately happens sometimes, but you never want to see it, and especially somebody who seems to be as esteemed as Ralph was. So rest in peace, bud. And,
yeah, rest easy. I think people forget about how dangerous it can be, especially at the short tracks. There's a lot of focus on safety when it comes to, NASCAR, IndyCar, these top series, but once you get on the short track level, and whether it's dirt or asphalt or whatever, it's these crews are just regular folks out there trying to help out, and you gotta keep them in your thoughts.
Exactly. No doubt that guy probably wasn't getting paid much, if at all, just for the love of the game, honestly. And I'm sure that a lot of people in this world would be okay with that being their final moment, I guess. Not to wax poetic about it, but either way, it just sucks. So yeah, thoughts and prayers with his family. But yeah, we've seen a lot of crazy incidents where people get real fucking lucky. That sprint car just clearing the fence at West Memphis earlier this year. The big ride that somebody took out in Oklahoma in the high limit show where there's no wall and that sprint car just shot off into space. James McFadden, so yeah, a lot of luck involved here. And it's just a shame to see when it doesn't happen that way. But anyway, now we can close the door in the septic tank and really get into it here. World of Outlaws have lifted their participation restrictions to allow drivers to race at PA Speed Weeks, which is the first time we've seen anyone sort of budge in the high-limit World of Outlaws war. Again, the reasoning is because so many World of Outlaws events have been rained out, and also the subtext, there's a lot of local guys on these World of Outlaws shows.
Yes,
right
there absolutely. I can confirm that, folks. There are a lot of local guys on these shows.
But yeah, they're opening up for Speed Weeks to let these guys go make some money and hopefully sort of cool the relations between the two sides, which is good news. PA Speed Weeks is fucking awesome. Speaking of which, cool. Anthony Macri got a big win at Lincoln. Logan Schuchart picked one at Thunder on the Hill. Again, this is going all week through next Saturday and maybe even beyond that. But lots of big-time 410 guys there. It's all on Flow Racing. Definitely worth watching. Corey Day.
I watched that Lincoln race. It was pretty sporty. That was a good deal.
Yeah, Lincoln fucking rips, man.
Yeah, that was a good track.
That place fucking rips. Corey Day won even more money. He's now the richest teenager in the United States. He picked up a win at Lake of the Ozarks in the High Limit Series. Logan Schuchart also won in World of Outlaws at Cedar Lake. That was pretty cool. The series, again, hit by a bunch of rain. They just can't catch a fucking break over there. Over in the late model world, Bobby Pierce got both wins at both races in Iowa at Independence and Hamilton County. Nick Hoffman picked up a big win at Norman County, which I was very excited about. And if I had a coffee table in front of my couch, I would have flipped it because I was that stoked. And then Brian Shirley getting a win at River City. So that was, always cool to see that guy do well. Mac Daddy Dale McDowell won $50,000 at Bulls Gap. That's $1,000 for each year they've been racing at Bulls Gap. So good for him. Again, some friends of the program were out at that one, said it was a good show. Jason Fager picked up a win during the Hell Tour, and the reason why I'm mentioning this, other than the fact that I like Jason Fager, is the fact that he is now the winningest driver in Hell Tour history with 14 over Scott Bloomquist. So how about that?
That Macri dude just won the feature at Port Royal tonight also.
Yeah. Anthony Macri's a shoe, especially in Pennsylvania. Over on the asphalt side of things, the Busch Light 100, Bubba Pollard took a big win there. That's down at 5 Flags. A couple of NASCAR drivers in there, Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott. Harvick finished 13th. Chase Elliott was 19th, so not a great night for them, but, it is what it is. Trey Craig won the Battle on Broadway 150, which was featured on Racing America, Jay's employer. Ross Chastain, of course, big-time NASCAR driver, and Brian's favorite NASCAR driver, finished in 4th. Josh Berry got 5th out of that. They had a nice little battle towards the end. Great race overall. The fairgrounds fucking rip. I hope they get NASCAR there at some point. And also, speaking of Brian, Tommy Joe Martin's got a 13th place finish in that race. So.
Oh, hell yeah. I love Tommy Joe.
Yeah, he did pretty well.
And a quick little olive branch over to another podcast that, olive branch is the wrong word to use. I just want to shout him out. The Black Flag podcast, I mentioned him on this show before. They just did an episode with Glenn Reen, who's a modified driver from up here. He raced a couple of Xfinity races recently. He raced in Nashville. He raced in New Hampshire, and he also raced in Iowa. And just his insight into being at a lower level team. Of course, he raced for Joey Gase. Just the insight he brings is worth the listen. Whether you listen to that show or not, I recommend finding the episode with Glenn Reen and listening to it. It really shines a light on just the way some of those smaller teams in Xfinity get the job done, and just some of the shit these drivers have to go through to make it happen. It's required listening for your podcast rotation this week, in my opinion, of course. But I believe that's just about it. Jay, am I missing anything? I know there's a bunch of shit that happened on Racing America.
Yeah, so we had, just to hit on the Busch Light 100, like you mentioned, at 5 Flags. That's a cool deal because that's a Blizzard Series race, too. So each one of those races is leading up to the Snowball Derby.
Right.
Obviously, Snowball Derby will be on Flow this year, but, I love watching all those Blizzard races at 5 Flags because these are the guys that are going to be in that event, racing for that. So we had a lot of really good action there. You mentioned the Battle on Broadway. That was cool to see I think that was on Thursday. Anytime you can have Cup drivers in the field, that always brings more attention. We did have the Celebration of America 300, the inaugural event up in Oxford Plains Speedway tonight. Yesterday was qualifying races. We had Kyle Busch and Daniel Hemrick in that event. Kyle finished 24th, and Daniel was actually 21st. But let's see, Joey Dorian got the win over Derek Griffith.
Damn.
So some good racing throughout. They were 3 and 4 wide at different parts of the race, just really digging and gouging for 300 laps around Oxford Plains, which is a really cool track.
Killer facility. Killer.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really cool action on Racing America this weekend as well for subscribers. And then we do have our pay-per-view event coming up on Tuesday for the 45th annual Slinger Nationals. So we got, I think, over 30 different teams entered into that event. Ryan Preece is going to be up there. So just really, really looking forward to that next week.
Super cool. Also, just to give a little shout out to the Dirt Late Model World, I just made my plans to go to the World 100, so I will be there at least Friday and Saturday. So if anyone listening is going to be in Eldora in September for that race, I will be there with bells on. I'm going to try and go to as many nights as possible, but I think Friday and Saturday is what I can swing now. But either way, I'll be on the property with a bunch of friends, former guests of the show and friend of the program, Kyle Armstrong, and a few other folks that you may know.
And
maybe
me,
Brien.
most likely.
Yeah.
Most likely. I'm almost sure I will be there at least a night or two. So
you fucking better, because when you live that close to Eldora, there's no excuse, especially for a race like that. But that's going to be a good time. Really looking forward to that. And I think that's just about it for the septic tank, and we can go ahead and just hit the lever and flush this thing down. Whoosh.
So we got two videos of the week this week.
Flush
As
and
the
flow,
toilet continues to flush.
Chug a lug.
And, is it still going, Rob?
She had to take a breath real quick.
So the two videos of the week this week were in relation to this past weekend's events in Nashville. The first being what I found was a 5-part series from a local news station in Nashville in 1987 about the history of racing in Nashville up until that point.
Not stop motion, real cars.
Yes, actual cars. So this was I didn't catch the name of the news network it was on, but one of the local Nashville news stations. Basically, it was only 13 minutes, and there was 5 actual days of clips, but there's also like 2 minutes of like intro where we saw a guy named Charles Stoffel showing off a late 30s, one of the old coupe style stock cars that they ran before they ended up running, full-bodied stock cars. And then they also talked about, I guess 1987 was the debut of the Nashville Motorsports Hall of Fame, which, a couple of the founders of the Fairground Speedway were inducted, along with Cuckoo Marlin and a bunch of drivers I've never heard of, along with Frank Reed, who they made note of as the deceased driver to make it in that year, which I thought was very funny. And then, as before the actual 5-part series starts, there's a little banter between the two anchors. It was a older white guy and a younger black woman, and the female anchor was doing her best to pretend to be interested in all this. So I thought that was cute. They start off part 1. I mean, the anchor makes some references, as you do, to the moonshine bootlegging, origins of stock car racing, and how in 1948 that led to the debut of stock car racing in Nashville at what was called Cumberland Speedway, which I guess originally was a motorcycle track. It was a dirt track outside of downtown. It was gone. They started racing in 1948 on the stock cars. By 1950, they had moved over to a track called the American Legion Bowl, which also was close to downtown, right by whatever river is in Nashville. And one of the guys who was inducted to the Hall of Fame that year, Bob Ruther, they interviewed him, and they talked about how that American Legion Bowl was very dusty, and while you didn't get any cars flying into the river, occasionally you get a wheel flying into there, so I guess that wasn't shocking. And they said they only got up to like 65, 70 miles an hour on that first American Legion Bowl, which still seemed like they were flying back then, which, again, this was, at this point, 70-something years ago.
Yeah, it was like 300 miles an hour back in those days. So
yeah. Part 2, they jump into the Fairground Speedway being built, which was 1957. It was originally dirt. It was started by 3 guys: Benny Goodman, who was interviewed in the piece, a guy named Bill Donahoe, and then someone named Mark Parrish. They said they signed a 30-year lease with the fairgrounds. So again, 57, 87. Weird how that coincides. Bill Donahoe, they show him talking about the death of Frank Reed, the deceased driver that made it into the Hall of Fame, and boy is Bill Donahoe's accent thick. Like, he is as Nashville as it fucking gets. Probably put down his cigarette just so he could, do this interview talking about. He might have just eaten it.
Swallowed the son bitch.
So apparently in 1965, the fairgrounds, the original grandstands were all wood, burnt to the ground. Some sort of accident. It's made it sound like one of the women's bathrooms or something. There was an electrical fire that burnt everything to the ground, and then they repaved the track as an asphalt oval. But the footage of that asphalt oval is pretty wild, because if you look at the turns, like, They get very banked in the very center, like the apex of the corner, but then like level back. Like, it's very weird. Like the early banked asphalt tracks, like we've all seen photos of those asphalt tracks where the turns are like one lane and banked at like 40 degrees.
Yeah.
And this first Nashville paving was kind of like that. Not totally like that, but the footage they show is just very strange. I guess I didn't realize that there was a original asphalt paving, and then they repaved it to what it is today, and it's been that way, I guess, since the 60s, I want to say.
Still pretty damn steep. But
yeah, it is still steep. Not nearly as steep as it was in that first paving, though.
no.
It looks like 1960. So after that, grandstands burning to the ground. What was his name? Benny Goodman sold his part of the track, and then the track was rebuilt. Part 3 of the footage, there's a guy named Bill Morton, who was another driver who transitioned from the coupes to the late models in the 60s. His hair, the quote that I have is, he looks very hot. He's like a fatter guy, and he's got this tie like tied as tight as possible, and his hair is really crazy too. Like one of those old, like, I don't know how to describe this haircut, but like it's very sharp in the back half of his head. Like it's almost got like points the back part of his skull. It reminds me of, there's like one fat guy in Beetlejuice that he kind of reminds me of.
Yeah,
I guess. I can't think of his name, but that's who I'm thinking of when I see him. Then another guy named Malcolm Brady gets on, and he talks about how their drivers in the 60s were bootlegging shoe polish as racing fuel, and then using like something else in their like water tanks and calling it sweet milk. I don't know. Very strange shit going on at this track back in the 60s, apparently. Jimmy Griggs, who was another driver who made it in the Hall of Fame that year, he's another guy who looked badass as hell. And they show clips of the track, and this is where, you know, I just noticed how strange the track layout was in that first part of the paving. Part 4, they finally get into NASCAR, get into the track. I guess would be the early 70s. I think the first ever live NASCAR broadcast was done. Like the first flag live NASCAR broadcast was done at Nashville, which you can see on YouTube.
No,
Eventually, we'll probably.
No, that was at Greenville Pickens.
Oh, Greenville Pickens. That's right. Fuck me.
Yeah,
Never mind.
Yeah. You can read about that in Starter Engines, famous first by, in the history of NASCAR by Jay Pennell. Get it on Amazon and anywhere you can get your books.
Look at that.
Sorry, thanks.
We haven't even got to the end of the show. Haven't even got to the end of the show yet. You can teach True Love something about plugs.
You can do mine for me later.
It's gonna be out the same damn book, you know it.
Part 4, again, we talk, they get into NASCAR, they interview a driver turned flagman Herb Lewis, and then they do a little brief talking with Cuckoo Marlin, who didn't really do anything in NASCAR, but he was a very good short track racer and won many, many races at Nashville, and obviously birthed Sterling Marlin. So he's got that feather in his cap.
Well, he didn't birth him.
Well, you know what I mean. He took part in the conception of Sterling Marlin.
There's a mental image
There
for
we
you.
go. Yeah, you just made it way worse, Rob. You just made it way
Squeeze
worse.
Sterling out of his pee hole.
You guys just
That's why he
ruined
talks
this.
fun.
Does have a great name though. One of the best names.
Absolutely.
He does. And then the last part of part 4, they get a clip from a guy named Charlie Binkley, who was another driver there, that he hit the speed record on the old asphalt track, which he said was like 120 something miles an hour. And I guess on the newer asphalt track, drivers couldn't get anywhere near that. So he's like, well, you know, I might not have been the greatest driver, but I have the all-time speed record ever at Nashville that no one will ever beat. So good for him, Mr. Binkley.
Yes, sir.
And then the last section kind of just, they talk about the fans and how racing in Nashville wouldn't be anywhere where it is today without the fans, and talk about, at that point, there were some new people in charge of the Speedway, which apparently they talked to Darrell Waltrip also, who I didn't realize, I guess, was also trying to take over the lease at one point, because he mentions that. And that's the end of the clip. So, you know, not necessarily the most in-depth 12-minute history lesson on 40-something years of racing in Nashville, but this is also a local news station 40 years ago, so
It's a good
it
start.
was a neat piece. At the very least, there were a couple facts that I'd never known before about Nashville. So what did you guys think of the first 40 years of Nashville history?
I say this every time we have a video like this. Any old footage of a place like this, I get excited about. And I've never seen a race at the fairgrounds. I have witnessed a test session down there, and it is one of those places where you can just sort of feel the history there. So it's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
nice to see it in its original context, you know. And again, like NASCAR, of course, is talking about going back there. So hopefully a lot of this history gets unearthed and presented to the general public in a greater way going forward. Because it really is a really important piece of NASCAR history. You know, you talk about Darrell Waltrip trying to buy it. I mean, that's where he learned how to drive, pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
that's why he's so good at Bristol and a lot of these short tracks, is because he was applying everything he learned in Nashville to everywhere else. So, yeah, this is a cool little video. And again, any old news footage is cool.
I mean, I definitely really just kind of reflected back to me and Ashley's trip there a few years ago for the SRX race while watching all this, and really just trying to picture all this stuff that had happened at that track and then compare it to what we saw that day when we were there. And
Yeah.
like, it's still so crazy to me how close that track is to downtown, and now also how close all the construction is right next to it.
Yeah.
And to think they still want to try to do NASCAR there. I mean, I hope it happens. If it does, I'll go. I'd much rather go to that than the super speedway.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I would be shocked if it does happen, I guess, is the sad thing I want to say. But yeah.
But we'll see. I guess
What about you, True Love?
I really enjoyed seeing what god awful '80s suit blazer the news anchor switched into every day.
Oh, yeah.
He started off in like a Easter yellow blazer, and then he moved to like a powder blue. I think there was like a houndstooth in there. It was bad. But yeah, it was just a short and sweet history lesson. They really breezed through it, but there was some great footage in there that I'd never seen before. Like the original awning, I don't recall seeing before. It looked very horse tracky.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree with that
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Jay, did you even watch any of these or no?
I watched the beginning of this one, and I saw the first gentleman you mentioned, who had the car. That thing was pretty badass. I think he was saying, you know, like a lot of like the cars they race there, the modifieds are like 3,000 pounds or something, and you know, that thing was like 1,800 pounds or something, and it was ripping. And he had like the old helmet and everything, so it was cool to see him.
Those are the last tires that hit that track in '63 too. Like they're the same exact
crazy.
tires. Which
yes, that was cool. I kind of breezed through it in like 2x speed, but you know, like I think anytime you have, I just think it's cool that a local news did this big feature on this, right? You know,
absolutely.
I think it goes to show how much news has changed in the last few decades. You know, so to see this about a track that is so historic and, you know, created a significant number of NASCAR stars was really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
There was whoever made this video, they like chopped it up pretty haphazardly, but for like half a second towards the beginning, it went to Bill Elliott's face.
I saw
and he's
that,
like
yeah.
clearly wearing like a suit and tie, and like they're gonna interview him at the news station, and then it spliced into something else, and I was so upset that I wasn't about to get some Bill Elliott interview gold. So if anyone knows where to find that footage, let me know.
I'll do some digging. Maybe it's out there somewhere.
I'm going through lots of VHS right now, so I'll have plenty of Bill Elliott stuff for you.
Hell yeah.
So moving on to the second video of the week. This is the next installment of the history of monster truck racing at Nashville Speedway from 1988. This was the first of, it was probably 3 days of racing. You know, we've talked about TNT before on the show, and TNT, what they would do, you know, they would do usually 2 to 3 days of racing at a track, and then, you know, each week when they were put out on TV, they would, you know, 1 week would be day one and the next week would be day two. And this was the first of 3 days at Nashville. And I guess one of the reasons why I wanted to show this clip was this is the first video of the week with monster trucks where it really shows what some of these trucks are capable of as far as high speed racing. Because, you know, all the stuff that we've shown, I mean, yeah, there's been some side-by-side stuff, but this is the first one where it's like straight-up drag racing, and a couple of these guys are flying. And also, this is a true USA 1 highlight video. So I think the first one we ever showed was the Bigfoot USA 1 video from, That's Incredible, or World of Speed, one of those shows from 83, 84. So there's always been somewhat of a rivalry between these two trucks. I mean, you got Ford, Chevy, blue, white. It's always been a thing. And when TNT started, I think it was pretty, unspoken that everybody thought Bigfoot would just dominate the series. And what TNT did was prove that there's other trucks out there that were just as fast, if not faster, than Bigfoot. Because, again, spoiler alert, TNT was around for 3 years and they didn't win the title. Bigfoot didn't win the title until 1990, after they built an entirely new truck that was so fast it was banned from the series for a portion of months, which we'll get to at some point. But this is 88 we're talking about. Yeah. So, we'll get to that. So, kind of a smaller field here. I think there was only like 8 trucks in Nashville, but a couple heavy hitters. And really at this point in the TNT season, it's the Bigfoot versus USA 1 show. I mean, you've got Awesome Kong, who's not at this race. He was up there. Gravedigger was still at this point where he wasn't breaking all the time. Carolina Crusher hadn't quite gotten to where he was, in the middle of his career. It was really just about Bigfoot and USA 1. So it starts off, right off the bat, there's a commercial break. And again, there's all commercial in this video. The first commercial break is pretty good. There's a Chevy truck commercial, which a lot of different various goofy situations that trucks, shows their diversity of different situations you can use them in. But the commercial ends with Stomper, which was really Chevy's flagship truck. I think Chevy gave TNT, who owned Stomper, like $250,000, just dump the money into the truck and make it. And it wasn't that fast of a truck. It was cool looking. It wasn't that fast. But this commercial ends with Stomper crushing 2 old Fords. Then there's a Purelator ad, which I think we've seen this ad in other races before. It's basically a guy feeling up his old Cobra and putting in a Purelator filter. And
we've seen this one before.
Yeah, and then an ad for the turning the power on TNT VHS, which, yes, of course I had this. And the funny part of this commercial was, if you call now, you'll get a bonus of monster truck bloopers. It was in that video. Like, they weren't going to edit that out if you didn't order at the right time. That was marketing 101. So
it's tape delayed.
Army calls this.
I should write that down. Marketing 101.
Army Armstrong, TNT's, probably most famous announcer throughout the entire series, and really probably one of the most famous.
Name.
It's his real name. Dude rules.
I saw that. I had to stop. I said, wait, hold on. I read that right? Yeah. Army Armstrong. All right, let's go.
Army rules. Listen, Ashley and I saw Army a couple years ago. He's still with us and still kicking ass. Army rules.
Nice.
But he calls this the most competitive track of the year, which I would argue is up there, just because it was just a straight line, as basic as it gets course, with 2 sets of crushed cars and some ground in between them. I think compared to some of the other tracks that we've seen in previous installments of the series, it was definitely the most basic, straightforward course. Again, you're on an asphalt track with a little bit of dirt thrown on it to help with the cushioning of the track. So the trucks we're going up to 70 miles an hour, which even though it doesn't sound very fast, for monster trucks it is fast. Like the trucks, even though they look like they're going fast, they usually aren't. Like, you go to Monster Jam, they might hit 40, 50 miles an hour if you're lucky, but 70 is fast with these fucking things.
Yeah.
USA 1 starts off as the fastest truck, and it gets a bye run. This happened quite often, especially if they had uneven amounts of entries. They'd always do like first and second round fastest losers would, get back into the lineup later on, but just does a bye run, just crawls over the cars, saves his truck. King Crunch versus Mopar Magic is the next round. King Crunch, based out of Texas, and I forget where Mopar Magic was from, but one of the very few Dodges at this point, and a very slow truck, but always had really cool paint schemes on it. easy win by King Crunch. Scott Stevens, we'll hear a lot from him the next few years of monster truck racing, but he was still kind of figuring out. He did a bunch of weird shit with his trucks until like 89 when he figured it out and was pretty fast. The next round is Alien versus Bigfoot, and obviously we all know Bigfoot. Alien was a truck from one of the Dabney brothers. Kirk Dabney drove this truck. His brother Kurt Dabney drove the Blue Thunder, like Ford Mustang monster truck, which might have been one of the other series or other videos we watched earlier on. Alien was a strange truck in the sense that, and they do an interview with him later on, but it was a Nissan body with a Chevy small block motor. It had bigger, narrower tires, which got like over the cars better, but were also bouncier and heavier. And that truck actually later on became a truck called Chi-Town Hustler with a Dodge body and more regular tires. And actually, that truck is still running today with a Red Dog sponsored, like Red Dog beer sponsored body, and just rolled over at an exhibition like a month ago. At some monster truck race, so that truck is still. Dog. Yeah, well, I'm willing to bet that the truck was sponsored by Red Dog in '95, and then somebody just bought it and kept it in a garage for 20 years, which is what some of these monster trucks like. That's what happens to them.
That's kind of how Red Dog tastes.
Sit in a garage for 20 years. Yeah.
I haven't had Red Dog in a good decade. I don't even know if
Red Dog is the first beer that I ever drink.
Wow. I mean, I had lots of Red Dog merch. I was definitely into those ads when I was 12.
Yeah, I had the posters and everything, yeah.
It's definitely America's children's first ice beer. That's for sure.
That's right.
Yep.
I can't get over those parents naming their sons Kirk and Kurt.
No, actually, no. It's Kirk and Kevin Dabney, excuse me.
Oh, okay.
I just remembered. Two different, not that close a K's, but close enough.
Close enough.
So, easy win by Bigfoot. Nobody was expecting this, any different outcome out of that. The next race is Just Showing Off, driven by Pablo Huffaker versus Playing for Keeps by Jesse Berge. So, Pablo Huffaker, brief history lesson on him. A very long history in monster trucks. He owned a truck before this. It was the Coors Silver Bullet truck that had a jet engine in the front of it. Yeah. He built Just Showing Off in '88, which was along those lines of all sorts of late '80s Fords, like they followed the Bigfoot trend. It was a very fast truck. At this point, it was competing for third place in the points of TNT, but he didn't have the budget that some of the other guys had, so he didn't make it to as many races. He actually ran this truck till '93, and then from '93 on, he worked with Dennis Anderson to own his own Gravedigger. It was the first ever non-Dennis owned Gravedigger, and he later on became part of like just a regular full-on official Gravedigger driver up until like 2018, and he actually owns his own monster truck chassis fabricating company now called I forget, Race something or other, but he's still involved in the sport. I mean, he was 25 here. He's, almost 40 years later, he's still part of it. So
it's like a Gallagher 2 type situation.
They keep switching between Paul and Pablo, which is very weird. But I mean, I've always known him as Pablo. I mean, his name is Paul, but he's from Texas. He was known as Pablo forever. Just Showing Off, easy win. Playing for Keeps had rear steering issues. Next up is No Problem versus Stomper. We talked about Stomper earlier. No Problem was an underfunded Bronco team that always was consistent. Like, they never won very often. They only won a couple races, but they very rarely ever made it, lost in the first round. They'd always at least make it to the semifinals. No Problem got the whole shot here, but Stomper had a special transmission and a bigger motor that allowed it to, get the win in the second half of the track. There's a brief Pablo Huffaker interview. Oh, no, actually, no, we missed that. The next race is Gravedigger versus Carolina Crusher, which is a pretty legendary friendship/rivalry. At this point, Gravedigger was still based out of Virginia, and Gary Porter, obviously, based out of North Carolina. But those guys worked together and, raced together throughout the 90s, and good friends and rivals and stuff. And Gary ended up driving for Gravedigger once he retired his truck. At this point, though, Carolina Crusher hadn't quite gotten to the point where he did in the 90s. Like, he was a very consistent guy where he, again, didn't always win, but he would always, at the very least, make the semis, if not the finals. Like, he was always like second, third place guy. And but this, in 1988, he still hadn't gotten up to speed there. And Gravedigger, meanwhile, this is at the point where he was just starting to like break his truck all the time. I don't think he'd put in his big, huge, overblown motor at this point, because he put in, when he got this second Gravedigger truck, this is the first one, he put in this big monster drag racing motor that would just blow up every fucking time you ran it, blow up transmissions. And it wasn't until he detuned and got a smaller motor that's when he started winning races. But here, he gets the win. There's a Pablo Huffaker interview. Again, he was 25, looks like a little baby. And that explains why 40 years later he's still involved in this, because he was 25 then. Here's the second round of commercials. These ones are all local TV commercials, which, granted this was shown on ESPN, but there was always blocks of local commercials. And based on where these were from, I'm assuming this was the Pittsburgh area, because it was the Monroe County Bank. Monroe County is definitely a Pennsylvania thing. And then Black Lumber, which that name is a little bit of a misnomer when you see the actual ad itself. And then a Duke versus Clemson NCAA football ad for ESPN. Right off the rip, after the commercial break, you see a guy in the crowd.
Can I interject real quick? I've been transferring over a ton of like VHS tapes. Mm-hmm. And I have them from like my local New Jersey deal, right? And so like I just have it running in the background while I'm doing work throughout the day. And so it goes to commercial, and I hear this guy go, talking about Williamboro, Chrysler, Jeep, and Dodge. I look up, and it's my ex-girlfriend from high school. It's her dad, right? In like 1991, right? And then at the end, like, he brings out his son, so it's like Jeremy's there, and I'm like, you gotta be fucking shitting me. So like I cut it down, and I sent it to her, and I was like, hey, like, this is pretty cool. Show your dad, tell him I said, hey, it's funny to see those things. Yeah.
You better not edit those commercials out. Whatever you do with those.
Brother, I'm thinking I'm going to make a YouTube page just of those commercials. I have so many of them.
Yeah. Okay, well, good. That's what I like to hear.
So, yeah. Keep it as it is.
Good. So back from the commercials, right off the rip, we see a guy in the crowd showing off the first ever Gravedigger shirt, which the one he's wearing is yellow. I have that shirt. I have it in white. I didn't realize they printed it on yellow, so now I have something else to look for. Army Armstrong is comparing monster trucks to drag racing, which he does many, many times. And again, it's a straight line course. It makes sense. First round of racing back, we see Carolina Crusher. He's back as the second fastest loser versus USA 1. Easy win by Rod Litzow. We get a Rod interview. I have the shirt he's wearing in this interview, but not the teal denim shorts. Don't have those.
That shirt was amazing, but those shorts were even more amazing.
Yeah, I figured you would have liked the shorts. That makes sense.
I was a big fan of that guy's look.
We met. Well, I don't know if you met him. I mean, I can't remember if we got a picture, but I mean, he was there at the TNT thing we went to.
I don't know. There's a lot of old guys.
A lot of old guys. a lot of old guys I recognize. So that makes sense. And then Rod, in this interview, I mean, the real takeaway is he kind of explains what ramps are, because, as a BMXer who's also loved this shit my whole life, like, you don't have to explain to me what ramps are when it comes to monster trucks, but I guess for people back then, they didn't necessarily know the terminology. The ramps, as far as the dirt leading up to the cars and how it launches the trucks over the cars. Right. It was a weird, they were still figuring out back then. It wasn't until that year, 89, they figured out if they just made them not quite as steep, the trucks could fly way the fuck out, but not up, and they wouldn't bounce as much. Again, most of these trucks in 88, 89 still had leaf springs, and that was it. So they were very, very bouncy. It wasn't until 89, 90 where, cantilever suspensions and tube chassis and all these other things where the trucks were able to really fly through the air, but also not bounce to hell. So, again, still figuring shit out at this point. The next run is Bigfoot versus King Crunch. Now, this is a rivalry that we're going to hear about throughout the entire TNT series, because Scott Stevens as much as I like King Crunch, he was a total whiny bitch about Bigfoot his entire career, about how Bigfoot would always, the rules would be bent for Bigfoot, and Bigfoot was cheating, and this, that, and the other thing. He didn't bitch about anything here, but he still lost. He got the whole shot in the race, but was way too bouncy off the first set of cars, and Bigfoot was able to just kind of pass him, which, again, not really a surprise. Next race
Maybe
is
not bitching, but he has a bitch move to lose like that.
that is fair. Very fair. The next race is Stomper versus Just Showing Off. Just Showing Off gets a good win, although Stomper was able to catch him almost at the very end. Then we see the Kevin Dabney interview where he talks about being involved at this point in monster trucks for 8 years. He had built the Jersey Outlaw truck and also the Duraliner Giant, which I think was in one of the other videos we watched earlier, and I think the wheel fell off of it in one of the races with his brother Kevin. And he kind of explains what's different about Alien compared to the other trucks. And, like I already mentioned, that became the Chi-Town Hustler after the Alien and had a Dodge body with normal tires. As far as the race goes, it was a fairly close race, but Gravedigger took the win. However, there was a lot of smoke out of the truck as we go into commercial break, and knowing the history of Gravedigger braking, I figured his night was over with, but it actually wasn't. The next commercial break, we see an ad for True Value, which was a sponsor of both IROC and USA One at this point. Color Time TV. Color Time was like a rent-to-own place in the 80s. I think it went out of business in the 90s or was bought by somebody else, but they did a series of animated ads with a guy named Captain Color Time, which seems odd.
On the nose.
Yeah. And then a ESPN Top Rank boxing ad with a bunch of guys I've never heard of. Coming back from the break, though, we see Gravedigger is okay and back on the track. It's the semifinals. Army talks about how USA One has been hitting track speed records with every single pass, which is just very funny because this is probably maybe at most the second time these trucks have been on this track, if not the first time they've ever been here. So he's been breaking track speed records every single run, which is very funny.
Don't let the facts get in the way of a true story, man.
It's true.
It's fair. And so,
man, y'all, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm still thinking about Cuckoo Marlin giving birth to Sterling. Oh, hell, my water broke.
I'll never look at that family legacy the same way again.
So this is the race that everybody's here to see in the semifinals. It's Bigfoot versus USA One, and USA One takes an easy victory. So
new track record.
We'll get to it. So let me just briefly talk about the rivalry here and why USA One is so fast. Yeah. Obviously, these guys have known each other for years. They've worked together for years. They've raced each other for years. But this first ever true, authentic racing series, Everett Jasmer, owner USA One, builds this truck that is faster in a straight line than every single truck in the entire series. And the reason why is because not only does it have a big-ass supercharged drag racing motor, but if you look at most of the other trucks, a lot of them run what are called planetary axles, which are kind of this gear system inside the hub of the wheels that kind of dissipate force and allow the axles and stuff to be stronger, but it also adds a ton of weight. It also adds stability, but there are benefits and downsides to running planetary axles. USA One, however, doesn't have those. It has very short axles. The wheels are about as underneath the body of the truck as you'll ever see in a monster truck. It makes the truck very, very fast in straight lines, which is why it won so many races. And spoiler alert, it was the 1988 series champion, which, eventually we'll get to the finals, but it was the fastest truck. And the first year of the series, everybody was expecting Bigfoot to win. USA One wins. The problem with not running planetary axles and running such a short axle on USA One is the truck was incredibly unstable when it bounced weird ways. So that truck in '88 won tons of races, but even in its championship-winning final race, crashed. it was a weird wreck, but in 89 and 90, the thing must have rolled over 24 times. Like every other week, it seems like they were flipping the thing and having to completely rebuild the truck. So very, very fast, but using technology that was only good for about a year and a half until the sport kind of took it over. But in 88, you couldn't beat it. So moving on to the next round of action, we see Just Showing Off versus Gravedigger. It doesn't seem like Gravedigger is actually having problems, but Just Showing Off has a very easy victory. We see one last round of commercials for Garst Seed Company, which never fucking heard of. Very boring, but very majestic Budweiser Clydesdale commercials, and then an NFL Monday Night matchup, which is some bullshit I don't care about. Next up is the finals. We see it's going to be Just Showing Off versus USA 1. We get an interview with Pablo Huffaker, who has a huge lip in. I don't know what he's dipping that night. Clearly, this is 4 decades before Zin, so he's not ripping those.
It's a mouthful of sixes.
Yeah. I mean, they were sponsored by Renegades, so I'm sure that's what he was dipping on, so that makes sense. He's not confident he's going to get this victory, but he's just happy that making it to the finals means he's going to be third place in the points at this point in the series. Right off the rip, Just Showing Off's transmission shits the bed before it even hits the first sets of cars, so it's an easy victory by USA 1. And I don't think at this point, I mean, the USA 1 was still second in the points, but it was right about to pass Bigfoot. And like I said, USA 1 beats Bigfoot at the very end. So that's the end of our TNT Monster Trucks at Nashville. Do you guys have any final thoughts after the wrap-up?
It's always so weird to see a series like this at a track that it's not necessarily meant for. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, we're used to seeing monster trucks in, like, domes and stadiums and that sort of thing. But to see them, like, inside of a facility that we all know what is, like, just down the... It's kind of like when Supercross is at Daytona or something like that. It's always very jarring to me, not in a negative way necessarily, but it's definitely kind of wild to see these guys out there ripping in a place like Nashville. Also, I thought that inside lane, or I guess it would be the right lane, I'm not sure which one they would call that in this case, but how the runoff was just pit road. If you happen to overcook it, you just kill that wall.
Well, I won't spoil anything, but I mean, obviously TNT, they ran at a bunch of different tracks we're all going to recognize. I mean, they ran at Lebanon Valley, they ran at, Louisville Motor Speedway and Milwaukee Mile and all these tracks, but I'll just say this. One of the most infamous monster truck wrecks of all time happens at Myrtle Beach Speedway. Eventually we'll get to that. So if you're a monster truck fan, you know what I'm talking about, but if you're not, look it up.
Yeah, just
everybody wrecks at Myrtle Beach every once in a while.
Yeah. Don't come out the same way you went in. But yeah, definitely really cool footage here. Again, packed grandstands and iconic looking grandstands too. Like, I think if you see a picture of Nashville, you know exactly where it's at. Mm-hmm. Just a sea of people stacked that high. That place rules. And I didn't even know that any sort of monster truck shows happen there. So this is cool to see.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it was a sold out crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was full.
Yeah, I mean, TNT was pretty big in '88, so especially in the South, I'm sure they were doing very well. And when I would go to the races at Lebanon Valley, I mean, they were always fucking packed. And these were midweek races too; these weren't the weekends, so always packed to the hills.
I always kind of thought monster trucks were like the WWE of wrestling or of like racing, and I never really knew if it was like staged or of like what. So to see these guys out there ripping, because I really didn't watch a lot of monster trucks, and these guys ripping around that track was pretty cool, and seeing it more of like a race format that was pretty solid.
Yeah, they have become like wrestling type entertainment, which is a huge bummer. But up until the late '90s, I mean, there was TNT, there was the USHRA series. TNT was bought out by USHRA, but then another series called the Penda series started, which also was just as good as TNT. And up until the late '90s, when Monster Jam and Freestyle started, like, it was legit racing. So this type of shit, like, they tried to make it NHRA style. I mean, that's what they wanted it to be, and it was legit. But at the same time, the technology just wasn't there. The trucks were so all over the place with money and construction, and you just you couldn't really standardize it in a way you did with other motorsports. So I think that's why the racing. I mean, it got to that point later on in the '90s, but eventually racing just wasn't as exciting for people, and then it became this. Don't get me wrong, it's cool to see monster trucks do backflips and jump 70 feet in the air, but at the same time, like, the racing purist... Yeah, the racing purist in me who grew up watching this shit, like, I love actual racing,
Holy fucking shit.
Yeah, it's cool to see it.
Sorry to interrupt here. Corey Heim had a nasty wreck at Caraway. He's okay.
Yeah, he's alert. I saw that.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, he got upside down and rode the fence for a while, so hope he's all right.
And also
left
to
him
circle
upside
back,
down in the car for like 15 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, I think they decided to roll him over instead of taking him out. And also go back in the septic tank a little bit. Kyle Busch, even though he finished poorly in the Celebration of America, he was running, I think, 4th in the closing laps and got turned. So his poor luck is not just
He's had
exclusive to the Cup Series.
He also had a bad night at Lee last weekend, so
He's had one truck win this year. That's all he's had. Like, come on, everybody's got to rally around Kyle Busch.
Now, Jay, as someone that used to work at RCR, what the fuck is the problem over there?
Wow.
Well,
what's going on with our poor little Kyle this year?
So
who can we blame?
all I'll say is, obviously I never worked on the competition side, but with Andy leaving, I don't think the team is going to turn around because Andy Petrie, has left. I think there's people still within the organization that have been in the organization since I got laid off and worked there. That are ultimately making these decisions.
So you're blaming Pop. It's all Pop's fault.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Is RC involved maybe a little too much? Maybe. These aren't the same kind of cars that, they were running even when I was there. So, this is a whole new game. But at the same time, what I think surprises me the most about all of this was that next-gen car was primarily developed in-house at RCR while I was still there. I mean, I saw the next-gen car probably for the first time around 2018, 2019, beginning in 2019. They were building it in-house. So, a lot of these, I'm pretty sure a lot of the hubs are made by RCR. Like, there's parts that are made by RCR. So, if you've had a long history of working on this car, you've tested this car a lot. A lot of the preliminary tests for the next-gen car were done by RCR. To miss it this bad, I just don't understand it. So I think there's probably some higher-ups that need to be shaken out of the tree. Is Keith Rodden the answer? I don't think so. But I think they need... I thought they had a good engineering team when I was there, but a lot of those guys have gone elsewhere. One of the top engineers that I worked with, works with Joseph Newgarden now, and he was one of the guys who got kicked out for however many races. So, I think that they need to, and again, I haven't been in that building really in any kind of capacity aside from a few media hits and walking around once or twice since about 2019, so I really don't know much about anything, but I feel like they need to do a better job of attracting talent, young talent, more engineering minded, and see where it goes from there, because obviously what they're doing is not working. Yeah.
All right, so back to monster trucks. Ashley, do you have any final words on the TNT series?
I mean, I was 3 in 1988, but this is right the era that I first have those first memories of, like my dad having it on TV all the time. So it's a nice little trip down memory lane. But My favorite part of the whole video, you mentioned it, was that very first commercial. The end of it was top tier.
Oh, the
monster
Ford
truck
one?
on the Fords. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd never even seen that one before. I was shocked at that because, I mean, there's all sorts of Chevy truck ads and all these monster truck videos when I find commercials at least, but I'd never seen that one before, so I thought that was cool. I'm sure they probably didn't run that very long because I'm sure somebody at Ford was pissed and complained about it, but I thought that was
also
cool.
all the driver interviews were so deadpan. It was like as soon as that camera turned on, they were like super nervous or something, but
well, yeah, they were all young rednecks who'd never been in front of TV before, and it's not until famous child predator Mike Wine joins the series. Well, I should say, no, Dennis Anderson was also pretty good on camera, even at this point.
He wasn't a famous child predator until afterwards, just to be clear.
Yeah, he wasn't a famous child predator.
He wasn't famous. He was just a child predator.
Hadn't made his mark yet. Yeah.
We'll talk. Well, we've already talked a lot about that, but we'll eventually talk more about that. But yeah, Mike Wine is not yet on the series. They mentioned his truck, but he's not yet on camera. But anyway, so that wraps up this edition of the history of monster truck racing. And for next week, so I couldn't really find anything interesting with Chicago this weekend. So what I decided to do is leap forward to Pocono, which is where NASCAR will be next weekend. And so the only times I've been to Pocono were both Cup races in 95. So for some reason I was like, I'm just going to Google Pocono 95 and see what comes up. And I found a YouTube channel.
Kyle Petty went in 95?
No, Terry Labonte won the first race and Dale Jarrett won the second, which was the only one he won in the 28 car. My first of two 28 car wins I got to witness in person.
Nice.
I had to at least guess.
Yeah, well, you fucked up, pal. So
not my first time.
I don't think Kyle Petty won a Pocono. He was a Dover guy. Dover and Rockingham were his two tracks.
He won in the Mellow Yellow car, I believe, in 93 maybe, because he had a camcorder in Victory Lane. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to try to find that footage. Well, speaking of Pocono camcorder footage, so what I did find when I decided to search Pocono 95 was I found a Pocono Raceway NASCAR Garage video from June of 95, which was the first of two races I was at that year. And actually, looking at this channel, this particular family, so it seems like it was a family with a special needs child that had they had some sort of garage access for a number of NASCAR years. They have cam footage from 94 up until 99.
Oh, shit.
Nice.
And all of these videos have less than 100 views. So I decided to go with the 31-minute video from June of 95. It's actually pretty good. I scrolled through it. The sound's good. The clips are good. And there's actually even footage of I think Jeff Gordon's pits during the race. So
Shit.
Very interesting.
30 minutes of them explaining offensive memes to their child.
No, unfortunately, I don't. Memes were not a thing. Well done, well done. Take that, Johnny Davis.
You can read all about it in Jay's book.
So that'll be the video of the week next week. A nice 31-minute Pocono Garage fan cam footage. And special shout out. I'll give a shout out to Mike from First 7-Inch Club. He was like, "Why don't you guys watch the NASCAR IMAX 2004 video?" I'm like, it's pretty boring, so I don't think we want to watch that. But it's on Netflix now if you want to watch it. So.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
Enjoy.
Do you have to have special 3D glasses to watch it?
I mean, I don't. I feel like I watched it in an IMAX theater, but I don't know. I don't want to
sit too close to your TV and burn $30.
Yeah, full IMAX. Cross your eyes.
Yeah.
Man, you're talking about like home videos from the racetrack. I have the entire 1990 season from Mobile International Speedway.
Put that online, dickhead.
Yep.
But hey, I got a plan. Just,
Jay brought his own videos of the week.
I did. I'm literally sitting next to a VCR right now, so that's basically what I've been doing with my days while I'm working. Is just transferring over tape. So
I have to start doing that myself, but my laptop is in its final stages of life, so I think I have to buy a new one soon. So
Basically, I transfer them and then immediately put them into a Dropbox. So I currently have, let's see, 32 videos, and I haven't even scratched the surface. I have NASCAR's Night in Hollywood. It starts with like a song and dance with Robert Goulet and a bunch of showgirls. It is wonderful. Just pure 1998. Like, it's good.
well, that's please put that online so we can talk about that at some point.
Yeah, we'll have to start doing like a monthly Jay's video of the week.
Yeah, Jay.
Yeah,
Listen, hey, you want to do that? Please, let's. We can do that.
Absolutely.
We could do that. I might need some work here soon.
Yeah.
After being on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, we pay less than Josh Berry gets over here, just so you know. But
Josh, you need some new PR guys.
yeah,
Call Jay.
Right?
drive that career right into the ground.
NASCAR's in Chicago.
Oh,
Nope.
We lose him?
he spun
We
out.
lost him. He rolled over on his mic and his
He
pillow
blew a
forward.
motor. His pillow
Blue
fort.
motor. Well, NASCAR is in Chicago. He's right. We're gonna have a lot to talk about. Jay, are you going this year or no?
No, I'm not going this year. I did go last year, and like I said, it was a hell of a time. It was just really anything unlike anything I had seen before. You know, like I had gone to the Coliseum, and that was something. But just to walk down the city streets and have race cars there, and you know, just people walking. You know, Chase Elliott walking down the street and nobody giving a shit. You know, when you're used to seeing him at the racetrack, and he's just like completely surrounded by 55-year-old men. Just clamoring for his autograph, So it's I'm sure he loved it. It was just a really cool atmosphere, and hopefully the weather and everything else goes well out there this weekend. I thought one of my favorite parts was, them running through tech on a city street, with the sky, skyscrapers in the background. That was really cool, and just the overall vibe I thought was great. It sucked the concerts and everything else like that got canceled, but hopefully everybody gets to experience the full experience this weekend, because I feel like it is truly something that's unique and unlike anything else that NASCAR does any other time throughout the season.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I will say, bring back the 4th of July Daytona race. That's all I'm going to say. Run it at 10 o'clock. Let us go to the beach.
Yep.
I did see that NBC's doing the radio style broadcast again, and since they don't have Dale Jr., Dylan Welch is going to be in one of the spots.
Oh.
So
Yeah, they
like
pulled
that
him
guy.
off of IndyCar coverage.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I like Dylan. Dylan's really good.
One thing I
hoping the SVG goes back to back. Personally,
his odds to win are surprisingly pretty good, which I think what I put a bet in, and he was 550 to win, which was as high as anybody else. I mean, is he gonna? I don't know what the likelihood of him going back to back is, but for him, his odds to be that, I don't know, high, low, whatever you want to call it, but
There's a place to do it though. This is it. So
Yeah.
he's certainly going to be in the mix.
for sure.
I think a guy like Justin Haley too. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you can't ignore how well he ran last year at this event, but also just how well that whole organization has been performing. This year, I think this is a huge opportunity for them.
Yeah, he's sniffing at the top 10, top 15 every single week now in a
That's
Rick Ware
right.
car. So that's something else. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on him as well.
I am putting a bet on him as we speak. So
Nice. And the bet is placed.
his top 10 is only plus 285, which, I mean, I guess that shows they're catching on to him doing fairly well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anyone bet on USAC since that's been up on DraftKings?
I haven't seen USAC on there. I've seen NHRA on there, but not USAC.
Oh, yeah, USAC. So you got to search for it, but it's there. You can win a lot of money doing that shit because they don't know what the fuck they're doing with the odds there.
I bet on John Force winning the weekend he wrecked. So that was
So it's your fault.
Well,
it
it's
is my
fault. Way
fault.
to go,
Definitely my fault.
Jesus,
So,
Brian. Oh.
breaking news.
All right. You're first. If only when we're wearing a bell helmet.
Yeah, if only.
Next time.
Oh man, I think we're at about 2 hours here. We should probably call it a night here. The restaurant is closed.
Hey, yeah, everybody, it's fine. I gotta go roll some silverware and do my prep work.
Yeah,
so.
Jay's been here
Thanks for
since
coming
11.
in. Your bill's on me. I got you this week. Cool.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate it.
All right,
that.
so
Mike
NASCAR in
Harmon's
Chicago.
got a running tab, so I just put it on his.
Nice.
So we got NASCAR in Chicago. We got IndyCar at Mid-Ohio, which I probably won't go to because I don't feel like spending $75 to go watch that race. Although they are going to be debuting the hybrid engine system this weekend, so
Yeah, I'm looking
that's
forward to
interesting.
seeing how
But
that goes.
I'm more interested to see what happens in Chicago. Sorry, IndyCar.
Yeah.
I know. My buddy Adam, who listens to the show, is asking me about it, and he's like, "You got to go get a report for Rob." So I love you, Adam, but I probably won't be there.
Yeah, lots of short track stuff this weekend. Lucas Oil late models at Portsmouth. I think the Smart Tour is running again. Yeah, just a lot of shit. So if you got Racing America, Flow Racing, Dirt Vision, any of those, it's a packed weekend. Summer's here, folks. So, and then PA Speed Weeks, of course, that's always the best show in town whenever that happens.
And then we got the Slinger Nationals coming up to Tuesday, July 9th, too.
That's right.
So that's on Racing America as well.
God, Slinger fucking rules, too. What a cool
it's
place
such a
that
good
is.
track.
So, yeah, no excuse to not watch racing this weekend, folks.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, what
right.
the fuck else you doing, dummies?
We even got a 4th of July discount sale going on, so head over to Race America and find that and get a discount off a year subscription. I think it's, I'm not going to say it because I can't remember it, but it's either 10 or 20% off. I think it's 10% off a yearly subscription, so
Google it, folks.
pretty good deal.
How many monster truck races do you have on Racing America?
None. I can say that. We do have
Well,
figure eight races though.
Jay, do you guys want to hire a monster truck racing reporter? Because I am in the market for a job
Knows the
myself.
guy.
So, hey, I don't.
I'll do it for next to nothing.
Then they'll probably hire you, and since you're
They'll pay
freelance,
you.
they'll probably hire you too.
Okay, well that's good to know.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
All right. Well, as always, you can follow us on Instagram, Meet Me at Applebee's, and then on Twitter, where I don't really use it, at Meet Me at the Bees. I am Speedway Screens on all the things. The store is speedwaytsj.etsy.com. And here's True Love with her very in-depth, detailed plug.
Please stop making me do this.
That would be a great Instagram handle. Please stop making me do this.
It's the same as it always. Snake Mountain.
Welcome to listen. How many do you listen to any podcast? They always
Not
everyone
really,
does this.
no.
They all do this. You gotta plug yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I should. That's a different. I shouldn't have phrased it that way.
No. Let's pull the cord on this.
Yeah. Rob Motes _official on Instagram. My band's called These Wild Plans. Like I said, I'm going to be at the World 100 coming up in September. That's a couple months off. I don't know what my next race plans are. I think I'm going to be at Stafford in a couple weeks for that midweek show there. And that's always going to be a good time. And then I think Cletus McFarland's show is the weekend or that weekend since they're running on Wednesday. So I don't know if I'll go to that or not, but it sounds entertaining. So either way, I'll be at Stafford in a couple weeks. So, and how about you, Jay? Who are you? Where's Jay?
Yeah, where's Jay? Thanks for finding me. Thanks for having me on. Every time I get to come on here and shoot the shit with you guys is always a lot of fun. So. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, JW Pennell, so it's JAYWPENNELL. Check out my book, Start Your Engines, Famous First in the History of NASCAR. You can get that on Amazon or any one of those sites like that. And then, just follow along on Racing America if you would like. Lots of racing action. But thanks for always having me on, and I'm eager to get some of these VHSs up on YouTube and maybe have some of my videos be your video of the week coming up here in a little bit.
Oh, we're going to hold you to that for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And it's always a pleasure to have you in the house with us. No question
for sure.
about that.
Yep.
Cool. And with that, looks like Jay is ready to clock out. So thank you again for joining us here at Applebee's, and we'll talk to you next week.